We haven't just done a lot of fancasts on this channel over the past 3 years, folks. We've actually done 99 now. This is our 99th fancast, and I'm excited to go to 100 and beyond. Oh my god. But first, we've got bed knobs and broomsticks to tackle. Why? You know, it's just one of those weird ones that I'm not entirely sure how well, like, America knows it. It's a very British film. But I always, in my head as a child, kept it in the same vein as, like, Mary Poppins. And to be fair, stars some of the same people. And it does have a similar style. It's this fantasy musical. It's this woman taking care of these kids that aren't her children. It's got a similar vague style to it. But to do it again today would be unusual. I feel like it was not revolutionary at the time, because Mary Poppins came first, but it was very in style at the time, doing these musicals in this vein and having the live action animation blend. That wouldn't be as big a thing nowadays, but I still feel like they could do an interesting and fun version of it. So, Miss Price herself, she is a witch who, I think her first name is like Eglantine, which is why they just call her Miss Price. Is it? Anyway, and she, unfortunately for her, has to look after these 3 annoying little bratty English children who are brought to her during World War II to be taken care of because she lives in the country. And she's been learning magic to become a witch to help fight in the war, to help in the war effort against the Nazis. From a, like, meal in school. Yeah, correspondence school. It's a weird story, I admit, but basically she is just a kind of strictish, motherly-ish figure. She's not terribly happy to have the kids around at first, but she grows to love them. It's one of those. Like every musical from the 60s. Doesn't matter. It's not important. And I think it's pretty obvious here. I think it's a pretty simple answer. I'd like to cast Emma Thompson. Why would I like to cast Emma Thompson? Well, it's easy to forget that Miss Price, she was not young. Emma Thompson is about 60 maybe now, but Miss Price definitely was, I think, in her 50s. It was Angela Lansbury played her originally, who, by the way, played Mrs. Potts in Beauty and the Beast. And then Emma Thompson played Mrs. Potts in the Beauty and the Beast remake. So, nailed it, boys. Didn't realise that when I cast her, but it is perfect. And she does have, Emma Thompson has a singing ability. She was also Nanny McPhee, it's worth mentioning, which is one of the closer things modern day to resembling the style of these old musical films like Bed Knobs and Broomsticks and Mary Poppins. So that's also kind of perfect. At that point, it's reaching meme levels of casting, but it's just too good. Emma Thompson would be so great. Next, then Mr. Brown. Emilius Brown is the man who runs the meal in school that she's been learning magic from. And they meet him in London when they go to find him because he shut the school down. And he's just a street performer, like street magic, like not real magic. And he doesn't know that the spells work, so he was just running a scam, and yet they end up together at the end. He was just scamming her for maybe years. Oh, God. Anyway, so then he figures out that he likes Miss Price, and he wants to come on this adventure with them to help her find this final spell that she needs to complete her training as a witch. It's a whole thing. But tough role to cast, because originally the guy that played him was also George Banks in Mary Poppins. This is one of the biggest similarities between the two. And he was able to play both that very strict style of father, and in this more of a not quite outright meme role, but once you get trampled by cartoon lions while playing in a live action character, there is a level of meminess to it. He's just this older guy. Again, he's like in his 50s probably in the original. And he's just meant to be able to be fun while also being quite a spluttering British kind of guy. And I'd like to see Gary Oldman play him. Because I'd like to see Gary Oldman play pretty much every role. And he is, again, he's in his 60s, so he is older than the role was originally. But I feel like it doesn't overly matter. The vibe of this lonely woman who grows to love these kids and this guy who's just been hustling for years and years, becoming their, well, spoilers if you haven't seen him, becoming their father at the end when he gets together with Miss Price. Did they not have parents? Because they just agree to stay with her at the end. And then they're like, oh, you're our father now. They didn't have parents? Maybe I'm remembering it wrong. I don't think so. So, he'd be great at it. Gary Oldman does not mind being Mimi. Have you seen some of the villain roles he did back in the prime of his career? Like The Fifth Element? Meme. He's just a meme. But he can do these older roles now where he feels like quite like a strict or like a sobering character who grows into the meminess. And that's pretty much all this is. The whole film is just weird and memey and funny. And that's all he wanted to be again. Maybe more music. I could definitely do more songs. Now, the children, okay? There's 3 of them. They were horribly annoying. Oh god, especially Charlie, the oldest. Horribly annoying in the original for sure. But we can change that. Maybe. We can try. I'm going to cast Milo Parker, okay? Charlie is just this annoying kid. Milo Parker he's 18 now, I think. But that's okay, because Charlie was definitely a teenager. So you can get away with that. And he's done good roles already. He's been in Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. He was in Mr. Holmes. He was in a lot of the Jarrells. And... and also Robot Overlords. I don't know what that is. But yeah, so... and basically, he's just someone who plays these roles, these kiddie roles, but he does it in that vein of cute and friendly kid, as opposed to vastly more irritating kid like it was in the original. So that's all I was looking for this role. For Carrie, she is younger. She is less annoying, but still a bit for sure. And again, you're just looking, and this is all you're doing. For these 3 kids, you're just looking possibly for unknowns. Mostly just for these British kids that can do these roles without being overly annoying. That's all I look for in any child roles, honestly, unless they're the leads. I want to cast Lily Aspel, because you remember Wonder Woman? Lily Aspel was the young Diana in the flashbacks at the start. There's a fair amount of those. There was 10-15 minutes. The new Wonder Woman film is about 5 hours long in the flashbacks. It seemed to take up the first half hour of the film. It was a long one, and Lily Aspel again played Diana very well. Very good young English actress. That's all you could really ask for. She's also been in, I don't know, like Holmes and Watson. Have they all been in Mr... Yeah, they've all been in Sherlock Holmes films, haven't they? I don't know why, because they're British, I guess. Paul is the youngest of the children, and it is the one, and I say this sometimes, you'd most likely just cast an unknown actor. They've likely not been in anything. But if you wanted someone who could possibly play the role, I think it's meant to be about 6 originally, so that is hard to cast a known quantity as, but I would cast Archie Barnes, because he was in The Dig that Netflix released earlier this year, and he had a significant amount of screen time there and did it well, despite being... I don't know what his actual age is, I couldn't find it on Google, but it guessed 5 to 10, and that sounds about right to me. So even if you're 10, you could probably get away with playing a 6 or 7 year old, really. Everyone plays young in Hollywood. And he was also already in Patrick and His Dark Materials TV show. The paragon of British child acting. What? The Bookman is the kind of... as close as you get to a primary villain for this. He's just this guy who wants to find out the same spell that they're looking for, and he's a sneaky little criminal guy. It's a weird kind of memey, not really big time villain who has a bit of a history with Mr. Brown. So you don't really need someone who's going to be on screen a lot for this. But I'd really like to cast John Cleese, because legend. Because John Cleese is just incredible. He's done so many unbelievably, uniquely British things in his career. And he is starting to wind down. He hasn't been in as much recently. But this isn't a particularly taxing role. There's not a lot to do for it. And it's the kind of one that it would be super fun, memey, and just epic to see someone like John Cleese playing it. Secretary Bird is a bird. The animated roles... there's surprisingly few you need to cast. You could cast more of them. You could give bigger voice acting roles to some of them in a new version. But really, the Bird and the King are the only ones you need to worry about. Secretary Bird, I was going to cast Rowan Atkinson. Mostly, again, because he's a legendary British actor. And he played Zazu in The Lion King. who was a secretary bird, really. So that's kind of funny to me. And he's the secretary to a lion that's a king. That's too memey. That's almost too memey, but it's really fun. Rowan Atkinson would be great fun. He'd have great fun with a role like that. Again, not done a huge amount recently, apart from the other Johnny English film they did. But I'd love to see him in something like this. Just another, oh yeah, great to see him popping up kind of thing. Finally, King Leonidas. Yes, like 300, but no, because he's a lion, and he's animated in a live-action film. They go to this island, and it's full of animated animals, because there was a spell that this guy came up with that made animals anthropomorphic. And then they've got the ability, with this thing he's got, to teach her the spell, or for her to learn the spell, that lets you make inanimate objects lifelike. Real chaos, the magic in this thing. But King Leonidas, I just thought it would be really fun to cast Idris Elba. Why? Well, King Leonidas is another villainous role more than anything else. He's not a full-on villain. He just wants to play football. But if you didn't see Idris Elba when he was the boss in The Office for a while, threatening Jim and doing that football episode, he was scary. I mean, Idris Elba always plays scary very well, but it was particularly scary while talking about his love of football. I don't know why. That was a frightening episode. But he'd be fantastic at it. He loves football, probably. Maybe. He's British. Got to. And Idris Elba is just great. And great at voice acting. Just like Shere Khan in Jungle Book. Whew! And that is all for this one. There are so many fan casts still to do, despite having done 99 of them. I've got an interesting one coming up on Sunday for 100, but let me know what else you guys want to see done after that, and subscribe so that you don't miss any, you cheeky bastards.